We're joined for a kōrero today by Alexander Stevens. Alexander is a sexual abuse counsellor and he has connections into Ngāti Kahu and Ngāpuhi. He has expertise as a researcher into mental health and social science and traditional knowledge. And today we're talking with him about a page that he has started called standingtall.org. And it's a page that has tautoko for people who have been sexually abused. What's interesting is that his doctorate research has uncovered a disturbing truth. He says all but one of the 30 Māori men he interviewed have been sexually abused by women. And, of course, we are learning more and more about how devastating that can be right throughout life. Thanks for joining us on the program today, Alexander Stevens II. Alexander, tēnā koe.
Hi, ata Māori.
Good to talk with you, Alexander. Where are you today?
I am just conscious, and I've just woken up all the way from South Auckland, therefore.
Ka pai. Mate, could you just share a little bit of your background as far as academic work is concerned and how you came to be delving into this area with research, but also setting up the site for support for those who have been sexually abused? What's your background in this area, Alexander?
Hi. So my background is a mental health professional, and I've been working in the sector for over 20 years. And I often found that a lot of patients and clients that would disclose to me that they had been sexually abused also had other issues as well, like schizophrenia and depression. And what I realised was that we were often medicating the mental illness, but not the root cause. And so 10 years ago, I branched out and decided to solely focus on sexual violence recovery, supporting our Māori and Pacific men. And over that time, just talking to them, I found out that there wasn't that much information online. Most of our men tended to look at YouTube or websites overseas, looking at African American or Latino men and how they recovered. And so when I decided to do my PhD, I just wanted to understand what resources were out there, if any, and what might it look like to support our whānau, especially our tāne, who had been sexually abused. And that's what led to my research.
What sort of emotional scars can sexual abuse as a young man leave?
All kinds of raru e hoa. It really depends on the individual that I'm working with. But more often than not, there can be issues around addictions, mental health, not being believed, whānau issues in terms of them maybe coming forward and disclosing and not being believed, or even worse, being turned away because it might be someone that might be prominent in their whānau who's led to the abuse. Suicide features quite highly as well, especially suicide attempts. So what we're talking about is, some really kind of dark topics that kind of need to be raised to the surface as soon as possible to support our men.
You can understand why guys are shy to talk about it, eh?
One of the challenges simply is just being a guy in New Zealand and being able to express vulnerability, express emotions, just express how you feel. And you add the complication of being sexually abused onto that, and you've got a whole lot of raru that is not only difficult to navigate for that person, but often those people around them as well.
How do they come to your attention, these guys who need emotional support?
So some of them had been abused in our state welfare system and had seen me during their time when they were in mental health and had sought me out. And then it really just became a snowball effect where those bros who, say, had been uplifted maybe together or they'd been put through a ball stall had then talked to their mates about seeing me for counselling. And then I went from seeing maybe 2 to 3 people at one stage to, initially 2 to 3 people, and then it kind of ballooned out to something like 20 people, all from some kind of mental health service, and all of them had been uplifted and put into our state welfare system at the time.
What's interesting and sad at the same time, sadly we hear of guys being abused by men, and this happens more regularly than we'd like to admit. Your doctoral thesis has looked at Māori boys being groomed for sex by women. It's not something that I would have originally or initially have thought, but yet it has occurred. Can you talk with us about this area of study, and because it's rather disturbing?
Yeah, so we don't really have any current stats around how many people get sexually abused. We often quote something like 1 in 4 females and 1 in 8 males in general are affected by sexual violence. But if you were to ask my other Māori colleagues in the field, we reckon it's about 1 in 3 for our wahine and 1 in 4 for our tāne. Are abused by, not only by Māori people, but, other ethnicities groups as well, to be fair. And so what had happened with my research was we were designing this, the website Standing Tall NZ, we were designing video content, and I guess it's just what happens, during the course of setting all this stuff up. A lot of the bros started to talk about who had sexually abused them, just to help with the context and the design of the things that we were creating. And it really did take me back that 29 out of the 30 bros had been affected by sexual abuse. And even though that wasn't, the main focus of my research, it's still worth noting because we don't really collect stats around this. And normally there is a perception that male are predators and not female. So when I realized, the information that I had, I just thought, wow, what am I going to do with this? How is this going to be perceived? It's really going to challenge that perception of who abuses our kids.
So of 30 Māori men who'd been sexually abused, 29 of them said they were abused by women?
That's right. And those disclosures kind of came over a period of maybe 6 months into the research, so not everyone disclosed it at the same time. And it was only when I started to reflect on all the research, because I'm coming up to finishing my PhD now, that I realised that we had high numbers. And not only did we have high numbers, I realised, do we have the services available to be able to work with our men who want to find a way forward,
It's an interesting stat. Was there some thread that tied all the guys together? Like, was it tended to be a family member? And at what age did this type of abuse tend to occur?
So most of the abuse tended to start from the ages of between 5 and 11 years old, so anywhere between there. They were family members, but then they were also people like aunties, first cousins, stepmothers. So we're talking about people that are kind of intimately connected with their own whānau. There was one case where it was a teacher. So, we're talking about all kinds of different people, but often well known to the whānau.
Well, it paints a different picture, doesn't it? Is it likely that some of these guys were abused by women and by men?
Yes. So initially they were abused by women, but we had some guys that had then been abused by men as well. Absolutely.
Well, Alexander, it's sad, and I'm pleased that you're offering a support service for these guys. You've started Standing Tall NZ.org. I've had a look at the website, and I'm pleased that it's there. What reaction to its establishment?
I get emails all the time from our whānau members expressing gratitude. Ultimately, for me, it was about just filling a need, I think that a lot of our bros are still out there in te kore, in that chaotic state. And when they do land on Standing Tall, I often get emails. Yesterday was a good example of correspondence from our bros that want to get help, maybe through ACC or finding a local counsellor in the area and being able to get the help that they want. Or coming to a point, most of our bros kind of want to get help when they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and being able to get that help as soon as possible.
You're doing good work there, mate. All the best with your PhD. Let's talk again down the track. Alexander Stevens, he's just set up that page if this is something that's affected your life, or somebody who's struggling to come to terms with that sad reality. StandingTallNZ.org. Our special guest today, Alexander Stevens. Thank you for joining us on the show today, Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you.